Hi, so today I'm presenting on CORS, and the theme of the kind of topics I like to talk about are things that particularly gave me a lot of frustration and pain for a long time, or were just really difficult to figure out exactly what they were about, like things that when I try to search online, there's never like one really good explanation. But I got lucky enough in my studying where I could kind of actually piece it together. So one of those topics was CORS. So this is going to be all about going a little deeper into what CORS is and a little bit of tips on debugging it so that hopefully you have a good mental model and also a lot of skills and tools so that you never really have to be bewildered by this error again. So this is like a rough agenda. It's not in order, it's just stuff I'm gonna cover, but they kind of blend in and out. So I'm gonna cover at least the history. I have an analogy that's really helpful. An example of an attack. We have some key concepts that are covered and also live coding. So this is a meme. Yeah, this is basically what it was like for me when I was a junior web developer, and I was trying to make a website and I came across CORS, and it was so painful. It made me question why I became a developer. I didn't want to hack because of it. It was really painful. So a bit of history. So back when the internet was a bit more simple, a website might make a request that was outside of its domain, and it might get simple things like an image. You might embed a video. You might request, submit a form. You could get a hyperlink, and these are all fine. And then in 1995, Netscape introduces JavaScript, and JavaScript can do much more sophisticated things. It can fetch an API request. And this introduces a Pandora's box of all the things, all the ways a website can be hacked. Because JavaScript inside like the script is so powerful. So everyone on the Internet Policy Board or whatever, they decided that this was a good time to introduce a policy called the same origin policy. So to understand the same origin policy, think about a school analogy where you have a lot of students, except for this guy, ignore him. And let's say a parent shows up at the school and they say, "Can I see my student's report card?" So the staff checks his ID. "Oh, you're the parent of this girl. So you're the same family, you're the same origin. And yes, you have access to see her report card." But if he tries to see anyone else's report card, well, you're not from the same origin and you don't have that access. So this is kind of like a read. You want to see some documents. Also, you can try to send something like send some information like, "I want to report that my student is sick today." Well, we want to make sure that you're actually who you say you are, that you're actually the student's parent, or else that would be really suspicious and weird. For a more technical example, imagine you have your browser open and you go to Facebook and you log into Facebook and they give you your authentication cookie and it's saved on your browser. And then you have some spam that's open in another tab. And they have JavaScript, so they can access your browser's cookies, and they try to make a request to Facebook like, "Hey, I have the cookie," but then Facebook can say, no, you're not actually from facebook.com. You're not actually the same origin as me. So not going to accept that, which is good. But do we want to block all sharing? Because that seems a little extreme, right? So there's this thing called VoiceXML back in 2004. I think it's like the voice that's like automated on like when you call a company, the really annoying thing. And they requested that they allow some resource sharing across domains because I guess they need it for their technology. And the committee, whatever, took a look at it and thought, this is actually a pretty good idea for general use. So 10 years later, they made it like an official recommendation. So the interesting thing is that CORS is not the thing that's actually blocking us from sharing resources. It's the thing that's relaxing that really strict policy of having no sharing at all. So one thing that we need to know before we go further is what actually qualifies the same origin specifically. So if you look at the parts of a URL, you have the protocol, the subdomain, the domain name, and the port, and everything up till here is considered the origin. So everything else, the path, the query parameters, these can be different, but it'll still be considered the same origin. So for example, if you have this website, which is https www.example.com/post/foo. Let's see how these other websites compare, if they're the same origin or not. So this one is only different in the last resource. Everything else is the same. So this is the same origin. This one is really tricky. It looks almost the same, but the protocol is different. It's an HTTP. So this is actually a different origin. This one is also a different origin because the port is the same. So here, even though the port's not specified, it's actually for HTTPS protocol, it's port 433 by default. And then the HTTP is, I forgot that one. And then the last one is missing the subdomain. So this one I miss all the time. So you have to be really, make sure you don't miss the subdomain. Okay, so now we have a example. So this was really inspired by this article by Ilijah. I will link it. And the examples are pretty much the same. I just wanted to kind of show it in live action. So here I have a tiny server running. It's just these three endpoints. There's just like a basic get home route. And then I have a post route at greet, and it's gonna take the name from the request body and just send back as part of a string. And so it's running now, so we can go to localhost. So this is that /get giving us hello world. And if we go into the console, so this is almost exactly like the tutorial mentioned in the article. So total credit there. Yeah, it's a really good article. And I really like the step-by-step samples because it kind of matches the kind of debugging I would normally do, but then I would get stuck on. So I'm gonna make a post request to the greet endpoint while I'm on the same origin, localhost 3000. So I expect to get back my name. I'm gonna change this to my name. And it says Angela. So that's fine. Let's try from a different origin. Let's try from Google. Let's see what we get. So we're on the Google domain, and this is as if the Google domain wants to make a request to localhost 3000. We get a bunch of errors. The first two are the important ones. Cross origin request blocked. Same origin policy disallows reading the remote resource. And the reason is CORS header access control allow origin is missing. If we go into the network, you'll see that there's two sent to localhost 3000. One is options and one is post. And now you might be thinking, why is there two? What is options? So this is what's going on now. There's two requests and they're both being blocked. So the options is a pre-flight request. And it's kind of like the browser's way of saying, I have this protocol that I want to use. Before I use it, before I send it to you, I just want to know if you actually understand and you have that protocol on your side. So do you speak CORS? And keep in mind that the internet is not like one really organized thing. It's like these bunch of different machines and like you're just crossing your fingers hoping that they kind of speak the same protocol as your machine or whatever server you're going to. So this options pre-flight request gets sent whenever something is deemed slightly complex. And we're not going to get too deep into it, but just to get an idea of what that is, there's a checklist you can go through. So first, is it a different method than get or post or head? So anything kind of a little bit out of the ordinary. Second, are the headers other than accept language, or content language? And finally, is the content type other than these really basic ones? And for us, although we're using posts, we are using application JSON as content type. So this is what makes it complex. Okay, so at this point, let's go back in time. Pretend you're me in 2017 and you don't know much about what this is, but you're just trying to debug it. And you just think like, okay, I'll do this strategically. I'll just fix one thing at a time. Let's fix this first one. So I see that there's this options thing that's getting blocked and it's complex. So I'm gonna make sure the options thing doesn't block us, and I'm gonna make it not a complex request. I'm gonna do that by removing the application JSON header. So instead of having it send JSON, I'm gonna just have it send over just text. And here in my Express server, I have to actually, it's not as concrete as I'd like it, but there's a middleware that lets you take in text. So my server is going to restart. And here, I'll try that request again. Oh, actually, it's a different request. I want to use this content type text plain. And for my body, I'm just going to send a string because now I'm just sending plain text. Okay, a little better. I only have one of those errors left. So it looks like this time I'm not even sending the options. So congratulations, I didn't send the pre-flights, but what we actually did was misconfigure the server, and this is very not recommended. what actually we're supposed to do is the right way of doing it. Let's undo all the text. Go back to JSON. What we should be doing is enable CORS options, on options, enable CORS. So this app.options in Express, we're adding this function to all incoming options. Paths, I think a more lower level way to do this is you should actually make a options endpoint that will intercept before greet and then add your CORS there. So the important thing here that we're configuring is we're adding this header, access control allow origin to google.com. And this is saying will allow only requests from our domain or from this one specific URL that we're allowing, which is Google. These other ones, if you use the CORS library in Express, I think they're set by default, but they're pretty much saying we're allowing it for these methods. For the sake of our example, we only need to put post really. Same with this, what headers are you allowing? So we're actually using content type, and that's kind of the only one we needed. The most important one is this, the access control allow origin is Google. Okay, so we've enabled CORS on options. So let's see how we do now. So we're going back to that JSON, the first post request. Okay, this did the same thing where we only have one error left, and let's see the network. Our options request came back 200 here. So that's great, that's working. And now for the second part, we still have to enable it on the post. So here we're just, this middleware just actually lets you use CORS on all your routes, but we can also just put enable CORS just on this one route that we're testing. And it's pretty much the same we're doing allowing on google.com. Yes, finally we get it back. Hi, Angela. And you see both options and post went through. So we had options passing when we added the CORS to the options route, but the post was still not passing. But we added both to options and all the other routes. So now we have both for posts, which is writing when we're sending data to the server. One really, really interesting concept that really clarified things for me was that writes, CORS writes is different from CORS reads. So let's see what that's about. All right. So this is just going to the get route. So I have a get/greet route, and I'm not sending it any information. So it's not a write. I'm just gonna get this string back that says hey. So it's a read. So let's try it first from our actual domain to see what we're expecting. We just want to say the word hey. And then in Google, oh, this is what happens when you keep this enabled. So we're turning off CORS again for the sake of example. I actually had a 304 error because my endpoint was cached. So it wasn't actually going through, and it was just giving back the correct resource, which is not what I want to show for demonstration purposes. So I opened up an incognito browser, and hopefully the cache isn't here anymore. There we go. The cross origin request is blocked. And let's see what's going on here. So we're expecting that because we didn't turn on CORS. But the funny thing here is that you get a 200 OK, even though there's an error. So what's going on? So this is normally the thing that would have driven me crazy. back when I was debugging this. So what's going on is that the server's like, yeah, this is a totally public route. I don't care who reads this. You can totally read it if you want. I'm okay with it. And they're sending it to the browser and they're saying, take it, read it. But the browser's like, this is a different domain. This is suspicious. I don't want to just read it. It could be a virus. So the browser is actually blocking the read. So now we want to sort of say, don't worry, this is safe. So let's enable CORS again. So this is also including Google. So now when we make a request, it gets sent through. And our post is fine. Oh, that's not the one. Let's get. So this is doing the thing where it's caching again. But this should also, it's supposed to be like a 200 get. So it's gonna be fine. So that's basically, in a nutshell, all the different basic states or the basic cases that you might need to think about when you're debugging. So these are some resources, mostly articles, but the main one that I was inspired by was this deep dive in CORS, and a little bit from this textbook I'm reading, high performance browser networking. So you can also try it out. It's super simple, but it might get you like a really good feel for it. And it's on my GitHub. So yeah, that is CORS. Cool.